The crystal forests of Vakara Prime burned under strange fire. Ambassador Thelvar stood in the orbital sanctuary, watching his world die. The viewing screen showed cities turning to ash, floating platforms falling from the sky, and his people running with nowhere to hide. His hands shook as he gripped the console. The Kryn swarm had arrived 3 days ago. Their massive ships appeared in the sky without warning. Thelvar tried to talk with them, tried to understand what they wanted. The Kryn response was simple: surrender or burn. The Velthar had no weapons, no soldiers, no way to fight. They were a peaceful species who spent centuries building art and philosophy. Now that peaceful existence meant nothing. Scholar Rin entered the command center, her face pale. She carried data tablets filled with research about the Kryn. Over the past year, 17 species had fallen to them. 17 civilizations destroyed. Each time, the Galactic Council arrived too late with nothing but words and regrets. Rin looked at Thelvar with desperate eyes. "We sent the distress call to the Council," she said quietly. They responded. They said they will send a diplomatic team. It will arrive in 3 weeks, 3 weeks. Thelvar looked at the screen again. In 3 weeks, there would be nothing left to save. The Kryn were not trying to conquer slowly. They were destroying everything with terrible speed. Already, half the population centers were gone. The sanctuary held only a few thousand refugees. Millions more were trapped on the surface. "Send the distress call again," Thelvar said. "Send it on all frequencies. Send it everywhere. Maybe someone else will hear." Rin nodded and began broadcasting. The message was simple. "We are dying. Please help. We have nothing to offer but our thanks." She sent it into the void, knowing it was probably useless. The galaxy had heard 17 distress calls before. Help never came in time. Far away, on the edge of known space, the human colony of New Horizon picked up the signal. Lieutenant Mi-Sun Han sat at her communication station during a routine night shift. She was young, only 27, but brilliant with languages and code. When the alien signal appeared on her screen, she almost ignored it. Strange signals came from deep space all the time, but something about this one felt different. She ran it through translation programs. The words came through clearly. "Help us, we are under attack, our people are dying." Mi-Sun felt her heart race. She checked the signal origin. It came from Velthar space, 6 days away at maximum speed. She immediately called her commanding officer. Admiral Tae-Wan Kim arrived at the communication center within minutes. At 52 years old, he had gray hair and tired eyes that had seen too many wars. He listened to the distress call 3 times. His face remained calm, but Mi-Sun saw his jaw tighten. "What do we know about the Velthar?" Kim asked. "Peaceful species, Admiral. They have no military. The attack is from the Kryn swarm. Intelligence reports say the Kryn have destroyed 17 other civilizations." Mi-Sun pulled up the data. "The Galactic Council is aware, but their response time is 3 weeks. Kim looked at the star charts. 6 days to reach Vectera Prime. 3 weeks until the Council arrived. He had served in the military for 30 years. He fought in the Mars Rebellion when colonists tried to break away from Earth. He commanded ships during the Outer Colonies War when pirates threatened human settlements. He learned one lesson from all those years. When people call for help, every second matters. "How many ships do we have ready?" he asked. "The full defense fleet, sir. 6 dreadnoughts, 20 cruisers, 40 destroyers, plus support vessels and fighter wings." Kim made his decision. He did not call Earth for permission. He did not contact the Galactic Council for approval. He had authority to respond to threats in his sector, and he chose to define this threat broadly. A peaceful species was dying. Humanity had the power to help. That was enough. Activate Protocol 7. Humanitarian intervention. All ships prepare for immediate deployment. Maximum combat readiness. We leave in 6 hours. The communication center exploded with activity. Officers sent orders to every ship in the fleet. Crews rushed to their stations. Fighter pilots ran to their craft. Marines loaded equipment. Supply officers checked ammunition and fuel. In the harbor above New Horizon, massive warships began warming their engines. Captain Jiwoo Park received the alert in her quarters. She commanded Raptor Squadron, the best fighter wing in the fleet. At 34, she was known for 2 things: brilliant flying and absolute dedication to protecting civilians. She lost her family to pirate raids when she was young. She joined the military at 18 and never looked back. Now she ran to the flight deck, calling her pilots as she moved. Dr. Sujin Lee was in the research section when the alert came. She was a xenobiologist, an expert on alien species and cultures. The military hired her as a civilian consultant for first contact situations. She grabbed her equipment and headed to the flagship. If they were going to help aliens, someone needed to understand those aliens. Commander Hyunwoo Choi received orders while training his Special Forces team. At 38, he was hard, practical, and extremely good at his job. His Marines could fight anywhere against anyone. They practiced boarding enemy ships, securing ground positions, and protecting civilians. Choi did not ask questions. He prepared his team for combat. 6 hours later, the Terran Defense Fleet departed New Horizon. The flagship was the dreadnought Indomitable, a massive warship bristling with weapons and armor. Admiral Kim stood on the bridge watching the stars stretch as they entered faster-than-light travel. Around him, his crew worked with quiet efficiency. Mi-sun worked at her station, trying to learn everything about the Velthar. She found their art, their music, their philosophy. They seemed kind, gentle, completely unprepared for violence. She also researched the Kryn swarm. They were conquerors, pure and simple. They took what they wanted and destroyed anyone who resisted. They had never faced serious opposition. "Admiral," Mi-sun said, "I can send a message to the Velthar. Let them know we are coming." Kim nodded. Mi-sun composed a brief transmission and sent it toward Vakara Prime. The message was simple. "This is Admiral Kim of the Terran Defense Fleet. We received your distress call. Help is coming. Hold on." On Vakara Prime, Scholar Rin was monitoring communications when the message arrived. She stared at the screen, not believing what she saw. The translation was clear. Someone was coming. Not the Council. Someone called humans. She had never heard of them. The message said they would arrive in 6 days. She ran to find Ambassador Thelvar. He read the message 3 times. His hands were shaking again, but this time not from fear. It was hope, fragile and strange. 6 days. They had to survive 6 more days. Another city fell while he watched. The Kryn were thorough, destroying everything they touched. "Who are these humans?" Thelvar asked. "I do not know," Rin admitted. "They are not in any council records." They must be new to the galaxy. But they responded in hours, not weeks. "And they are bringing a fleet." The word spread through the sanctuary. Hope was a dangerous thing, but the Velthar held on to it. They had no other choice. They gathered their remaining people and tried to hide them as best they could. They shut down power in empty areas and concentrated everyone in the deepest shelters. They fought for time, precious time, until these unknown humans arrived. The Kryn continued their assault, unaware that anything had changed. Warlord Kraj commanded the invasion from his flagship. He was pleased with the progress. The Velthar were even weaker than expected. In a few more days, their world would be empty and ready for Kryn colonization. Then his forces would move to the next target. The galaxy offered so many helpless species to conquer. He received a strange report from his sensor officers. A large fleet was approaching the system at high speed. Kraj examined the data with mild curiosity. The ships were unknown designs. They came from the direction of the rim, the empty space where the Council barely maintained contact. Probably some minor species coming to beg for mercy. He sent a standard warning, "Leave or be destroyed." No response came. The fleet kept coming, moving fast. Kraj felt the first touch of concern. Who would approach a Kryn battle group so boldly? He ordered his ships to battle positions and waited. In 6 days, he would have his answer. Aboard the Indomitable, Admiral Kim reviewed tactical data constantly. He studied Kryn ship designs, weapon capabilities, and combat patterns. The Kryn relied on overwhelming numbers and heavy firepower. They were used to enemies who ran or surrendered quickly. They had no experience with coordinated resistance. Kim called a meeting with his senior officers. Captain Park attended via video link from her carrier. Commander Choi came from the Marine section. Dr. Lee joined from her laboratory. Mi-sun took notes. "The Kryn expect easy victory," Kim explained. "They have 15 capital ships and numerous support craft. They outnumber us, but they are overconfident and sloppy. We will use that against them. This is not about destroying the Kryn. This is about saving the Velthar. We hit hard, we hit fast, and we make the Kryn retreat. Captain Park, your fighters will strike first. Commander Choi, prepare ground teams for rescue operations. Dr. Lee, I need you to establish contact with the Velthar immediately when we arrive. Everyone clear?" They all nodded. They had trained for situations like this, though never at this scale. Humanity had fought many wars, learned many hard lessons. The Terran defense fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Vicara system. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Admiral Taewon Kim watched the tactical display update with enemy positions. 15 Kryn capital ships hung in orbit around Vicara Prime. Smaller craft swarmed like insects around a dying animal. On the planet's surface, fires burned across 3 continents. Sensor analysis, Kim ordered. The Kryn formation is loose, Admiral. They are not expecting resistance. Their ships are focused on ground bombardment, not fleet defense. I am detecting significant civilian population concentrations in the northern hemisphere. The Kryn are actively targeting those areas. Kim felt cold anger settle in his chest. These were not military targets. These were homes, schools, hospitals. The Kryn were not fighting a war. They were committing massacre. He had seen this before. In the outer colonies when pirates attacked civilian transports. He hated it then. He hated it now. All ships, battle stations. Fighter wings launch immediately. Commander Choi, prepare assault teams for ground insertion. Dr. Lee, try to contact the Velthar. Tell them to transmit locations of all civilian shelters. Lieutenant Han, open a channel to the Kryn fleet. The bridge became a symphony of controlled chaos. Officers moved to their positions. Status reports flooded in. The fleet spread into attack formation. Captain Jiwoo Park sat in her fighter cockpit, feeling the familiar weight of combat gear. Her squadron formed up around her carrier. 40 fighters total, each one a deadly precision instrument. She ran through her weapons checklist and waited for the launch order. Channel open to Kryn flagship, Admiral. My son reported. Kim spoke clearly, his voice carrying the weight of absolute certainty. Kryn forces, this is Admiral Kim of the Terran Defense Fleet. You are attacking a peaceful species without provocation. Withdraw from Vicara Prime immediately or be destroyed. You have 30 seconds to comply. On the Kryn flagship, Warlord Crash listened to the translation with amusement. These humans dared to threaten him? He commanded the most successful conquest force in Kryn history. He had burned 17 worlds. Who were these newcomers to demand anything? He laughed and opened a response channel. Unknown humans, you have made a mistake coming here. Leave now or join the Velthar in death. We claim this world by right of conquest. Kim checked his chronometer. 30 seconds passed. He looked at his weapons officer and gave a simple nod. The officer pressed the firing authorization. The Indomitable and 5 other dreadnoughts fired their main railguns simultaneously. Tungsten rounds, each weighing several tons, accelerated to a fraction of light speed. They crossed the distance to the Kryn fleet in seconds. The first Kryn capital ship barely had time to detect the incoming fire before 3 rounds punched through its hull. The ship broke apart in a cascade of explosions. 2 more Kryn ships took similar hits. One lost its entire forward section. The other began spinning out of control, venting atmosphere and debris. The Kryn fleet suddenly realized they were in a real fight. All fighters launch, Kim ordered. Captain Park felt her fighter catapult forward from the carrier deck. The acceleration pressed her into her seat. Then she was free, flying in the black void with her squadron around her. She saw the Kryn fleet ahead, massive and dangerous. She also saw their confusion. They were turning, trying to bring weapons to bear, but they moved slowly, like sleeping giants suddenly awakened. Raptor Squadron, Attack Pattern Delta. Target their sensor arrays and communication systems. Make them blind and deaf. Park pushed her throttle forward and dove toward the nearest Kryn ship. Her fighter was small, fast, and precise. She weaved through defensive fire that was too slow to track her. She fired missiles at the sensor clusters on the Kryn hull. Explosions blossomed across the enemy ship. Behind her, the rest of Raptor Squadron did the same to other targets. Within minutes, half the Kryn fleet was operating with damaged sensors. The human cruisers and destroyers joined the battle. They moved in coordinated groups, each ship covering the others. They fired missiles that zigzagged through space, avoiding Kryn countermeasures. They used electronic warfare to blind enemy targeting systems. The Kryn tried to respond, but they were used to fighting helpless opponents. They had no experience with an enemy that fought back with skill and precision. Warlord Crash watched his fleet fall apart on the tactical display. 3 ships destroyed, 5 more damaged, and the battle had barely started. His weapons hit nothing. These human ships moved like fish in water, always where his fire was not. His sensor officers reported jamming across all frequencies. His communication network was failing. All ships concentrate fire on the human flagship, he roared. The Kryn ships focused their weapons on the Indomitable. Beams of energy and kinetic rounds converged on the massive dreadnought. But the Indomitable had armor designed for this. The energy weapons scattered off deflection fields. The kinetic rounds hit reactive plates that absorbed the impacts. The ship shuddered but held. And while the Kryn wasted fire on the flagship, human destroyers circled behind them and tore into their engines. On Vakara Prime, Ambassador Thelvar watched the orbital battle through long-range sensors. He could barely understand what he was seeing. The Kryn fleet, which had seemed invincible, was being systematically destroyed. The human ships moved with purpose, each action part of a larger plan. It was like watching a dance, except this dance brought death and fire. Scholar Rin stood beside him, recording everything. She saw patterns in the human tactics. They did not just attack randomly. They targeted specific systems. They isolated enemy ships and destroyed them one by one. They used their smaller fighters to disable sensors while larger ships delivered killing blows. This was not combat. This was surgery. Dr. Sujin Lee finally established communication with the Velthar Sanctuary. Ambassador Thelvar appeared on her screen, his alien features showing obvious stress and confusion. Lee spoke calmly, trying to project reassurance. Ambassador Thelvar, I am Dr. Lee with the Terran Defense Fleet. We are here to help. Please transmit coordinates of all civilian population centers. We will protect them. Thelvar stared at her. Protect them? The humans were fighting a battle in orbit. How could they protect people on the ground? But he had no choice. He transmitted the data. Within seconds, Lee passed it to Commander Choi. Choi studied the map of Vakara Prime. Kryn ground forces were concentrated around the largest cities, which were mostly destroyed. But civilian shelters dotted the landscape. Many were under direct threat. He selected insertion points and briefed his Marines. We drop in 30 seconds. Rules of engagement are simple. Protect civilians. Eliminate Kryn ground forces. Establish safe zones. These people are counting on us. Do not let them down. The drop pods launched from the assault carriers. They were small armored vehicles designed to survive atmospheric entry. Inside each pod, Marines checked their weapons and prepared for combat. Choi rode in the lead pod, feeling the heat build as they hit atmosphere. Then the retro rockets fired, and they slammed into the ground near a Velthar shelter. The pod doors blew open. Choi and his team burst out into a war zone. Kryn soldiers were attacking the shelter entrance with heavy weapons. The Velthar inside had sealed the doors, but they would not hold much longer. Choi did not hesitate. His team opened fire with precision rifles. The Kryn fell before they understood what hit them. More drop pods landed around the shelter. Marines established a perimeter. They set up defensive positions and heavy weapons. When the Kryn tried to reinforce their attack, they ran into prepared human positions and were cut down. Within 10 minutes, the area was secure. Choi approached the shelter entrance and knocked. This is Commander Choi, Terran Defense Force. The area is secure. You are safe now. The door opened slowly. Velthar civilians emerged, their eyes wide with shock. They had expected death. Instead, they found human soldiers who offered them water and medical supplies. Children clung to adults. The elderly wept with relief. Choi assigned medics to help them and moved to the next shelter location. In orbit, the battle reached its conclusion. Warlord Crash had 12 capital ships destroyed or disabled. Only 3 remained combat-capable, and they were damaged. His ground forces were being systematically eliminated by human Marines. His conquest was falling apart. For the first time in his career, Crash faced a choice he never expected to make: retreat or die. He ordered retreat. The surviving Kryn ships tried to disengage and escape to faster-than-light speed. Admiral Kim anticipated this. Human destroyers had positioned themselves along the escape routes. As Kryn ships tried to flee, they found themselves boxed in. 2 more were destroyed trying to break through. The final Kryn ship, Crash's flagship, managed to escape, but only because Kim allowed it. Let him go, Kim ordered. Let him tell the rest of the Kryn what happened here. The battle ended. The Terran Defense Fleet held orbital space around Vakara Prime. On the ground, human Marines secured the last civilian shelters. Captain Park and her fighters conducted patrol sweeps, making sure no Kryn remained hidden. The operation took 27 hours from arrival to complete victory. On the Indomitable Bridge, Kim reviewed. 3 days after the battle, Vakara Prime began to change from a war zone into a recovery zone. Human engineers worked alongside Velthar civilians to restore power grids and water systems. Medical teams set up field hospitals in every major population center. Food supplies arrived from human cargo ships. The transformation amazed Ambassador Thelvar. He stood in what used to be the capital city, watching human soldiers clear rubble from collapsed buildings. These same soldiers had fought with terrible efficiency just days ago. Now they moved carefully, searching for survivors, treating the wounded with gentle hands. One Marine, a large man with scars on his face, sat on a pile of debris sharing his ration with Velthar children. The contrast confused Thelvar deeply. Dr. Sujin Lee approached him, carrying a tablet with reconstruction plans. She had spent 3 days learning about Velthar culture, studying their needs, coordinating relief efforts. Thelvar found her easy to talk with despite her being so alien. Ambassador, we have drafted plans for rebuilding critical infrastructure, but we need your input. This is your world. We are here to help, not to impose our ideas. Thelvar took the tablet and reviewed the plans. They were thorough, practical, and respectful of Velthar architectural styles. He looked at Dr. Lee with curiosity he could not hide. I must ask you something, Dr. Lee. Your people fight with such violence, such precision. I watched the battle recordings. You destroyed the Kryn without mercy, yet now you help us rebuild with equal dedication. How can both exist in the same species? Lee sat down on a piece of broken wall, gesturing for Thelvar to join her. She chose her words carefully. Humans come from a difficult world, Ambassador. Earth taught us to fight or die. For thousands of years we fought each other. We became very good at war, but we also learned the cost of war. We destroyed ourselves many times, almost completely. We learned that violence is a tool, not a purpose. We fight to protect, not to conquer. We fight to end conflicts, not to perpetuate them. Thelvar processed this. The Velthar evolved on a gentle world with abundant resources. They never developed warfare because they never needed it. The concept of organized violence was alien to them. But these humans, they refined violence into an art form, then chose to use it for protection. It was like a predator deciding to guard sheep instead of eating them. Your species frightens me, Dr. Lee, but you also gave us hope. The galaxy is more dangerous than we believed. We need to learn to defend ourselves. Would humanity teach us? Lee smiled. That is exactly what we hope for. Not to create more warriors, but to ensure no species is helpless. Yes, we will teach you. Across the city, Commander Hyunwoo Choi supervised the construction of defensive positions. His Marines worked with Velthar civilians, explaining basic security concepts. Most Velthar found the ideas strange. Walls that could stop weapons, underground shelters, warning systems. These were concepts they never needed before. One young Velthar, whose name translated roughly to bright sky, asked Choi why humans carried weapons all the time, even during peacetime. Choi unloaded his rifle and showed the young alien how it worked. We carry weapons because we hope we never need them, but if we do need them, we want them ready. It is like carrying medicine. You hope not to get sick, but if you do, you want treatment available. Bright Sky handled the rifle carefully, feeling its weight. We never thought about protecting ourselves. We thought the galaxy was peaceful. Parts of it are, Choi replied, but predators exist everywhere. The Kryn proved that. The difference is whether you can defend against them or not. In orbit, Admiral Taewon Kim met with Scholar Rin aboard the Indomitable. She had requested a tour of the human flagship, and Kim agreed. She wanted to understand these humans who appeared from nowhere and changed everything. The ship amazed her. Everything had purpose. Every system connected to support combat operations or crew survival. Nothing was wasted. Kim showed her the Combat Information Center, where officers managed the entire fleet. Displays showed ship positions, weapon status, and sensor data. It was overwhelming in its complexity. How do you coordinate all this? Rin asked. The Kryn had more ships, but they fought as individuals. Your fleet moved as one organism. Training and doctrine, Kim explained. Every officer learns the same principles. Every crew practices the same procedures. When combat begins, everyone knows their role. We trust each other to do their jobs. That trust makes us strong. Rin recorded everything. She was writing a detailed report about humans for the Galactic Council. They needed to understand what humanity represented. She asked Kim the question that bothered her most. Admiral, you came to help us without knowing anything about us. You risked your ships and your people for strangers. Why? What did you gain? Kim looked out at the planet below, thinking about the question. We gained the knowledge that we did the right thing. You called for help. We could answer. That is enough. My species learned a hard lesson long ago. If you have power and do nothing when others suffer, you become responsible for that suffering. We chose to act. Meanwhile, on the Galactic Council station, Councillor Ventar reviewed reports with growing concern. The humans defeated the Kryn swarm, which was remarkable, but they did it through overwhelming military force, which was troubling. For thousands of years, the Council maintained order through diplomacy and consensus. Species evolved past warfare, or so they thought. Now these humans appeared, demonstrating military capabilities beyond anything the Council possessed. They claimed peaceful intentions, but history taught Ventar that power corrupts. Today they saved the Velthar. Tomorrow, who knew what they might do? He called an emergency council session. Representatives from dozens of species gathered virtually. The debate was heated. Some praised humanity for saving the Velthar. Others worried about the precedent. Military intervention without council approval? What prevented stronger species from using force whenever they wanted? Ventar proposed sending a delegation to investigate human actions. The motion passed. Within days, a council ship departed for Vakara Prime. Ventar led the delegation personally. He needed to understand these humans. The galaxy's future might depend on it. Back on Vakara Prime, Captain Jiwoo Park found herself teaching basic flight concepts to young Velthar. They were fascinated by her stories of flying through space, dodging enemy fire, working as a team with her squadron. One young Velthar asked if she was afraid during combat. Park considered lying, then decided honesty was better. Yes, I am afraid. Every time. Fear keeps you alert. Fear reminds you that what you do matters. But I trained for years to control that fear. To think clearly despite it. Fear is not weakness. Letting fear control you is weakness. Lieutenant Misun Han worked in the communication center, coordinating between human forces and Velthar authorities. She intercepted a message from the Galactic Council about the incoming delegation. She immediately informed Admiral Kim. Kim read the message and smiled slightly. Good, let them come. We have nothing to hide. Our actions speak for themselves. He called a meeting with his senior officers. Dr. Lee attended as well. The council is sending investigators. They want to know what we did and why. I want everyone to be honest and open. Show them our operational records. Explain our tactics. Answer their questions. We acted correctly. We saved lives. That truth will be our defense, Choi spoke up. What if they demand we leave?
What if they try to sanction Earth?
Then we deal with that when it happens, Kim replied. But I do not think they will. They might fear us, but they also need us. The Kryn are still out there. Other threats exist. The galaxy needs protectors whether they admit it or not. Scholar Rin completed her initial report and transmitted it to the Council. Her conclusions were clear. Humanity possessed advanced military capabilities, but also restraint and ethics. They fought with precision to minimize casualties. They followed rules even during combat. They immediately provided humanitarian aid. They were not mindless warriors. They were professionals who chose violence only when necessary. Her report included a warning. Do not treat humans as enemies. Do not try to suppress them. Instead, work with them. Learn from them. The galaxy needed their strength and their willingness to use it for protection. Ambassador Thelvar called a gathering of his people. Thousands of Velthar assembled in a partially rebuilt amphitheater. He spoke to them about the future. We survived because strangers answered our call. These humans came from across the galaxy to save us. They asked nothing in return. Now we face a choice. We can remain as we were, peaceful and vulnerable, or we can learn from the humans, become stronger, ensure we are never helpless again. I propose we ask humanity to teach us defense. Not to become warriors like them, but to protect ourselves and others who might need help someday. The Velthar debated. Some argued that weapons and military knowledge would corrupt their peaceful culture. Others pointed to the ruins around them, the evidence of what helplessness cost. Eventually, the decision was made. The Velthar would learn, not to seek war, but to prevent it. Dr. Lee received the decision with satisfaction. This was what humanity wanted. Not dependent allies, but capable partners. Species who could defend themselves and help defend others. A galaxy where everyone contributed to security instead of relying on others. As night fell on Vakara Prime, human and Velthar worked side by side. The Galactic Council delegation arrived at Vakara Prime 3 weeks after the battle. Their ship was elegant and diplomatic, bearing symbols of peace and unity. Counselor Ventar led 7 representatives from different species. They came with questions, concerns, and deep worry about what humanity represented. Admiral Tae-Won Kim greeted them aboard the Indomitable with full military honors. His crew lined the corridors in dress uniforms. The delegation walked through the ship, seeing the organized efficiency of a military vessel. Everything was clean, functional, ready for combat at any moment. It reminded Ventar that these humans were warriors first, diplomats second. They gathered in a conference room. Kim provided complete access to all operational records, battle recordings, communication logs, casualty reports, rules of engagement documentation. He held nothing back. The delegation spent hours reviewing the data, saying little. Ventar watched the battle footage with growing discomfort. The violence was extreme, precise, overwhelming. Yet he also noticed something unexpected. Every human weapon system had deliberate targeting. They hit military objectives, avoided civilian areas when possible. They could have destroyed everything from orbit in minutes. Instead, they conducted surgical strikes, protected population centers, minimized collateral damage. This was controlled violence, not mindless destruction. After reviewing the records, Ventar addressed Kim directly. Admiral, your forces used overwhelming force against the Kryn. Some council members believe you exceeded reasonable response. How do you justify the level of violence employed? Kim met his eyes calmly. The Kryn were committing genocide. Every hour we delayed meant more Velthar deaths. We used sufficient force to end the threat quickly and decisively. Prolonged conflict would have caused more casualties, both military and civilian. Overwhelming force properly applied saves lives in the long term. Another delegate from a species called the Paxtari spoke up. But you arrived without council authorization. You intervened in a situation without diplomatic consultation. This violates established protocols. Your protocols required 3 weeks, Kim replied. The Velthar did not have 3 weeks. We had the capability to help immediately. We chose action over procedure. I understand that concerns you, but I would make the same choice again. The delegation interviewed other human officers. They spoke with Captain Jiwoo Park about fighter operations. She explained how her pilots maintained strict rules of engagement, how every weapon release required human authorization, how they risked their lives to protect civilians. We could use automated weapons, Park told them. Our technology allows it. But we choose not to. Machines cannot make moral judgments. Every trigger pull requires a human decision. We keep ourselves in danger to maintain ethical control. This surprised the delegation. Species with advanced military technology, usually automated warfare to reduce their own casualties. Humans deliberately kept themselves at risk to maintain moral oversight. It contradicted everything they expected about warrior species. They interviewed Commander Hyun-Woo Choi about ground operations. He showed them after-action reports, medical treatment records, civilian evacuation procedures. The delegation saw that human Marines protected Velthar civilians at significant risk to themselves. Several Marines died shielding aliens they had never met before. Why did your soldiers take such risks for strangers? One delegate asked. Choi answered simply. Because that is what soldiers do. We protect those who cannot protect themselves. The Velthar needed help. We provided it. Their being alien does not change that responsibility. The delegation visited the planet's surface. Ambassador Thelvar testified about the Kryn invasion, the desperation, the call for help that only humans answered. He showed them the rebuilt cities, the schools where human Marines played with Velthar children, the hospitals where human medics worked alongside Velthar doctors. The council debates protocols, Thelvar said firmly. Humanity saved us. They fought for us. They died for us. They asked nothing in return. You want to judge them? Judge them on results. My species lives because they acted. That is all that matters. Scholar Rin presented her detailed research to the delegation. She had studied human military history extensively. She explained Earth's violent past, the constant wars, the near self-destruction. She showed them how humans developed warfare into a science, then chose to restrain it through ethics and law. They are not peaceful, Rin explained, but they are controlled. They learned through terrible experience that violence must serve a purpose, not exist for its own sake. They weaponize cooperation, not just weapons. That is why they are so effective. Counselor Ventar found himself struggling with his preconceptions. He came expecting to find dangerous warmongers. Instead, he found professionals who treated violence as a tool, not an identity. They switched between warrior and caregiver seamlessly. Marines who destroyed Kryn ships yesterday helped rebuild schools today. He requested a private meeting with Dr. Soo-Jin Lee. She agreed, meeting him in a garden the Velthar were rebuilding. They walked among recovering plants while discussing philosophy. "Your species frightens us, Dr. Lee," Ventar admitted. "You possess military power beyond anything we can match. History teaches that power corrupts. How can we trust that humanity will not become the next threat?" Lee considered her response carefully. "You cannot trust us completely. We are not perfect. We have our own dark history. But we learned from that history. We built systems to check our power. We maintain civilian control of military forces. We document everything. We keep humans in moral decision loops. We do not trust our own infallibility. That is our safeguard." "The galaxy evolved past military solutions," Ventar argued. "We achieved peace through diplomacy and consensus. Does humanity threaten that achievement?" "You evolved past military solutions because you never needed them," Lee countered gently. "Your homeworlds were peaceful. Your resources abundant. Your neighbors cooperative. Earth gave us none of those advantages. We developed warfare because we had no choice. But we also developed ethics, restraint, and the wisdom to know when not to fight. The Kryn proved that the galaxy is not as peaceful as you believed. Someone needs to stand against species like them." Ventar had no good response. The Kryn destroyed 17 civilizations while the Council debated. Humanity stopped them in hours. Facts spoke louder than philosophy. The delegation learned something else during their investigation. Intelligence reports revealed the Kryn were mobilizing a larger fleet. They planned revenge against humanity, not at Vakara Prime but at human colony worlds. Admiral Kim shared this information openly. "We knew this might happen," Kim told the delegation. "We accepted that risk. The Kryn will attack us because we stopped them here. We are prepared for that consequence." This revelation changed the dynamic of the investigation. Humanity did not just save the Velthar. They made themselves a target to protect others. They traded their safety for principle. Ventar realized he was judging people who voluntarily accepted danger for strangers. The delegation interviewed Lieutenant Mi-Sun Han about strategic planning. She explained human doctrine: hit hard, hit fast, minimize casualties, protect civilians, establish security, rebuild infrastructure, train local defense forces, then withdraw. Humans did not want to occupy or control. They wanted to help species defend themselves. "Our goal is not empire," Han explained. "Our goal is a galaxy where every species can protect itself. We want to teach, not rule. We want partners, not subjects." The delegation spent 2 weeks at Vakara Prime. They observed human operations, interviewed personnel, reviewed records, and spoke with Velthar civilians. Slowly their perspective shifted. These were not conquerors. These were protectors, dangerous, capable, but fundamentally committed to defense rather than aggression. Counselor Ventar compiled his final report. He wrote carefully, knowing his words would influence council policy toward humanity. His conclusions surprised him as he wrote them. Humanity violated protocol by intervening without authorization. However, their intervention saved millions of lives. They employed overwhelming force but maintained ethical constraints. They risked their safety for strangers. They provided humanitarian aid equal to their military capability. They sought no territorial gain or political advantage. They offered to teach defensive capabilities to threatened species. His recommendation: engage humanity as partners, not adversaries. Learn from their military expertise while helping them understand galactic diplomacy. Accept that the galaxy needs both diplomatic solutions and military capability. Isolation or conflict with humanity serves no one. Cooperation benefits everyone. Before departing, Ventar met privately with Admiral Kim one final time. "I came here expecting to condemn your actions. Instead, I find myself grateful for them. You saved the Velthar. You made the galaxy safer. You also complicated everything. The Council must now accept that military force has a role in galactic affairs. That is difficult for species who evolved past warfare." Kim nodded, understanding. "We do not want to upset galactic order. We want to contribute to it. But we cannot stand by while peaceful species are destroyed. If that means challenging established protocols, we accept that consequence." The Velth. The attack came exactly when intelligence predicted. The Kryn swarm dropped out of faster-than-light travel in 3 human systems simultaneously. Over 100 capital ships, thousands of fighters, and orbital bombardment platforms. Warlord Crash committed everything to this assault. He would destroy humanity and restore his reputation. The battle for human survival began. At New Horizon Colony, where this all started, Lieutenant Mi-sun Han coordinated civilian evacuation. She was promoted to commander after her service at Vakara Prime. Now she faced the nightmare scenario. Enemy fleet incoming, civilians to protect, insufficient time. She worked with cold efficiency, pushing fear aside. 3 million colonists needed evacuation. She had maybe 6 hours. Admiral Tae-won Kim split his fleet between the 3 attack sites. It spread them dangerously thin, but abandoning any colony was unacceptable. He took personal command at New Horizon with half the available ships. The Kryn outnumbered him 5-1. Traditional tactics would fail, so he abandoned traditional tactics. All ships implement guerrilla protocol. We are not defending fixed positions. We are fighting a moving battle. Hit and run. Strike and fade. Make them chase us through the system. Every minute they chase us is another minute for evacuation. The human fleet scattered. Small task groups, 3 or 4 ships each, struck at the Kryn formation from multiple directions. They fired missiles and railguns, then jumped away before the Kryn could respond. They used the system's asteroid belt for cover. They dropped mines in the approach lanes. They made the Kryn pay for every advance. Captain Ji-woo Park led fighter operations with brutal efficiency. Her Raptor squadron, augmented by fresh pilots, struck Kryn sensor arrays, communication hubs, and command ships. They flew through debris fields and used gravity assists from moons. The Kryn fighters were more numerous but less skilled. Park's squadron killed 3 enemy fighters for every one they lost. On the ground, Commander Hyun-woo Choi conducted asymmetric warfare. His Marines set up ambush positions around key infrastructure. When Kryn drop troops landed, they found prepared defenses and deadly crossfire. Choi taught the Kryn a hard lesson. Taking territory means nothing if you cannot hold it, but the Kryn kept coming. They had numbers. They had firepower. They had the advantage. Human casualties mounted. 2 destroyers destroyed. 1 cruiser crippled. Fighter losses reached 30%. Marine positions were overrun one by one. Kim watched the tactical display with cold calculation. They were losing, slowly but certainly. Commander Han finished loading the last civilian transport. 3 million people evacuated in 6 hours. It was a miracle of organization. But now she faced a choice. The transports needed escort to escape. That meant pulling ships from the defense. Weakening an already desperate position, she contacted Admiral Kim. Admiral, all civilians are evacuated. Transport convoy is ready to depart. They need escort through the outer system. Kim knew what that meant. Sending escorts would doom the remaining defense forces. But civilians mattered more than territory. Assign 4 destroyers to convoy escort. All other ships prepare for final withdrawal. We will hold as long as possible, then retreat to inner systems. The order went out. 4 destroyers broke from combat and joined the civilian convoy. The rest of the fleet began fighting retreat. It was a painful decision, yielding space that humans had colonized over decades. But strategic reality was clear. Hold everything and lose everything, or give ground and save lives. Then sensors detected new contacts. Ships dropping out of FTL, many ships. Kim's tactical officer identified them, and his voice carried surprise. Admiral Council vessels incoming, multiple species. They are hailing us. On the main screen, Counselor Ventar appeared. Behind him, Kim saw representatives from a dozen species. Admiral Kim, the Council Coalition is here to assist. We do not have your military capability, but we have numbers and willingness. Where do you need us? Kim felt something he rarely experienced, surprise. The Council actually came. Not just to observe or mediate, to fight. He quickly assessed the Coalition fleet. Smaller ships, less powerful weapons, but trained and determined. It was not enough to win, but it was enough to survive. Counselor formed defensive screen around the civilian convoy. Get those transports to safety. My forces will continue engaging the main Kryn fleet. Coordinate with Commander Han for fleet positioning. The Coalition ships moved into position. They lacked human tactical sophistication, but they followed orders and worked together. The Kryn suddenly faced unexpected resistance. They expected to overwhelm humanity. Instead, they found multiple species united against them. Warlord Kraj watched this development with rage. These lesser species dared to oppose him. The Council, which always cowered behind diplomacy, now sent military forces. It made no sense, but it also complicated his attack. He needed to eliminate these reinforcements before they emboldened more opposition. He ordered 20 ships to break off and destroy the coalition fleet. The Council vessels braced for impact. Many captains were commanding warships for the first time. They were afraid but determined. Councillor Ventar himself was aboard the lead ship, showing by example that the Council would not just send others to fight. Admiral Kim saw the Kryn formation change. 20 ships moving to attack the coalition. He made instant decision. All human ships intercept those Kryn vessels. The coalition protected our civilians. We protect them. Full attack, maximum aggression. The human fleet struck with concentrated fury. They hit the Kryn detachment before it reached the coalition. Railguns fired at point-blank range. Missiles saturated defenses. Fighter wings swarmed capital ships. It was suicide tactics, trading careful strategy for raw aggression. But it worked. The Kryn detachment was shattered. The cost was high. Kim's flagship took severe damage. 2 more destroyers were lost. But the coalition survived, and seeing human sacrifice for allies inspired those allies. The coalition fleet charged forward, joining the attack. Their weapons were weaker, their tactics basic, but their courage was absolute. The battle became chaos. Ships burning, debris everywhere, communications filled with damage reports and casualty notifications. Captain Park's fighter took a hit, forcing her to eject. She floated in her survival pod, watching the battle continue around her. A Velthar ship, one of their first military vessels, broke formation to rescue her. The galaxy was learning to fight together. After 18 hours of brutal combat, Warlord Kraj reassessed. He had superior numbers but was losing ships faster than expected. These humans fought like cornered predators. The coalition, though weak individually, supported effectively. Civilian evacuation was complete. Military objectives were slipping away. He made the hardest decision of his career: retreat, pull back to regroup. The conquest was failing. His reputation was destroyed beyond repair. But he would survive to rebuild. He ordered general withdrawal. The Kryn fleet disengaged and jumped to FTL. The remaining human and coalition forces were too damaged to pursue. They held the battlefield, but at terrible cost. Kim surveyed the damage. 20 human ships destroyed, 43 damaged. Casualties exceeded 2,000. Coalition losses were similar, but they survived. More importantly, they survived together. Commander Han coordinated recovery operations. Search and rescue teams looked for survivors in debris fields. Medical ships treated the wounded. Engineering teams assessed damaged vessels. The work was enormous, but people moved with purpose. They had survived the worst the Kryn could throw at them. Admiral Kim met with Councillor Ventar aboard a neutral supply ship. Both men looked exhausted. Kim's uniform showed scorch marks from a fire on his bridge. Ventar moved with the stiffness of someone who experienced combat for the first time. "Thank you for coming," Kim said simply. "Your arrival saved us. Without coalition support, we would have lost the colonies." Ventar shook his head. "You saved us first. At Vakara Prime, we owed this debt. Besides, the Council realized something important. The galaxy needs both diplomacy and military capability. We cannot have one without the other. This battle proved it. The Kryn will attack again," Kim warned. "They retreated, but they are not defeated. Next time they will be more careful, more prepared. We need to take the fight to them." Offensive operations. Hit their supply lines, liberate occupied worlds, force them to defend territory instead of conquering it. Ventar considered this. Offensive military operations went against everything the Council traditionally supported. But defense alone was failing. The Kryn would keep coming until stopped permanently. "What do you propose?" Kim pulled up star charts. Coordinated strikes across 15 systems. Target Kryn logistics, communication networks, garrison forces. Simultaneously, we train liberation forces on occupied worlds. Turn their conquests into rebellions. Make expansion too expensive to sustain. Force them to choose between defending what they have or conquering more. Either way, they lose momentum. It was ambitious, aggressive, dangerous. It was also the only strategy that might work. Ventar thought about the Council's response. Many members would oppose this, but he had seen the alternative. He watched peaceful species burn while the Council debated. He fought alongside humans and saw their effectiveness. Sometimes the right choice was not the comfortable choice.